Hello again. Here it is in 13 inches of snow in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Was wonderful. I just look out the window and I'm a child again. This is how snow used to be when I was a kid. Anyhow, that's not what I was going to talk about snow. I want to talk about the theater again. One of my favorite pastimes. And once before, I did an evening of a short piece on mistakes that I've been involved in the theater. And there's so many. There's so many. I can't just stop with the 5 or 6 I did already. So I picked out a couple more. Some are funny, I hope, and some of them are a little scary. But what I'm talking about I'm not talking about the kind of thing like you're in Peter Pan and the device that's keeping you in the air breaks and you fall 30 feet to the stage and you're ruined for life with your spine is broken. No, that's that's above and beyond the Call of Duty. I'm talking about the stupid little things that happen when you're on the stage because your mind stops functioning, or sometimes it's an act of God, and you have no control over it. I wrote a couple of them. I'm getting so old that I have to write down uh, 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 little tiny. I wrote it down just a little while ago, so I remember. And I'm so old that I can't read my own writing. So let me give me a break. One of the very first things we did here in the Scranton area, I belonged to several different writing groups, several different theater groups. But for a while, I was up in the Abingdon Players, and one of the first plays I ever did at the Abingdon Players, I was in the play with Don Ringkamp's wife, and he directed it. It was a play called The Torchbearers, which Actors Circle did again several years later. That was one of our first plays at our theater. But back in the Abingtons, we did The Torchbearers. It's a cute play. It's an old play, and basically the story is um, of a woman who joins a little local theater group because she wants to, get out of the house and so forth. She's married, but she wants to get out, and her husband's very stoic and very, you know, like me. And so the thing is, it's about a theater group that is so bad, and they make so many mistakes, and it's a comedy. Opening scene is me, the stoic husband, sitting in my home with my wife in another chair, and I'm reading a newspaper, and she's trying to find the not the courage. I'm not going to hit her, but just to break the news that she's got some people coming over tonight, theater people who are going to rehearse this new play, and she's going to be involved. While we are sitting there doing our little bit of dialogue, opening scene, the gel, it's a metal, it's a metal, a square metal thing that holds a red or a green or a purple or a blue piece of gel that the light goes through to give some color to the scene, falls from up above and lands between the two of us on the floor. That's how the play opened after about 7 lines of dialogue. We ignored that because we were both professional. We didn't say, how could a gel fall down in our parlor, dear? We just ignored it. And a few minutes later, in our kept the dialogue going, I'm waiting for the phone to ring because then I will get up and I will go to the phone, pick it up, and carry on a conversation, which is important to the play. So we did our dialogue, and the phone didn't ring. And we added some more dialogue, and the phone didn't ring. And we added a lot more dialogue, and the phone didn't ring. And finally, I said, I better see what happened to Paul. I better call him. So I get up and I walk to the phone. And as I'm reaching my hand out to pick up the telephone, which should have rung 2 minutes ago, the poor gal who's running the sound in the back goes, bring, bring. We got to laugh. But that's the kind of thing that happens on the stage that makes you want to go back and do it, do it again. It's such an uplifting thing. Then, when I was with Carol Reynolds' group, which was actually before this, these are not necessarily in sequence. Carol Reynolds' group was called New Group Theater, and I was did a whole number of plays there. One of which was The Odd Couple, and a fellow who was at the time and until he moved away, him and his wife were our best friends, Nancy and I's best friends, and they're both passed away now, unfortunately. But he played the neat guy, and I played the slob, Who would have guessed, right? And and we were in the second act. Everything was going smoothly. I'm Lou Bisignani, and I'm sitting on the stage alone. He's in the kitchen. He's off stage in the kitchen, but we have dialogue going on. And all of a sudden, my mind goes blank, just like it does all the time now. And he said a line, and I knew that I had to respond to it. But the best I could come up with was, "I don't know what to say," which at least it wasn't. I've seen other people with less experience break up on stage. They don't know what to say, and they look out at the audience and say, I knew the line this morning," things like that. Literally, that has happened. But and then he was sharp enough to pick me up on it. And within a few seconds and a few ad lib lines, we got back into the play. And that's the kind of stuff that happens all the time. But what made me remember it, want me to mention it, I don't know what to say, was that several years later, Bob Schlesinger started a theater group called Scranton Public Theater. And we were up in the museum. They had a little stage up in the museum, nice little space, and it was a very nice space to work in. So we did 10 Little Indians, an Agatha Christie murder mystery, and I played the guy. I think I was the fourth one to die or something like that. But I was a drunk, and a very frightened man. And so by the time two or three people have died, now we're about to start the second act, and we're such a small space that my knees were touching the curtain that was closed, the proscenium curtain. And there's about five of us in this scene, all sitting on a couch and a couple of chairs, waiting for the act to start. Now I'm an actor. I mean, I'm a little Bisignani. We don't fool around. And at that time, you could smoke on stage. I guess you can still smoke on stage, but not at Actors Circle. We don't allow smoking on stage. But we used to smoke on stage. So I get my cigarette out because we're going to start in about a minute. And I get my cigarette out, I light it. My knees are touching the proscenium curtain, as I mentioned. And I decide that since I'm nervous and afraid of dying, because we've had 3 people killed already, I've got to start. Maybe I'll put a little shake into it. This is the kind of stuff that we actors, come up with. I'll add a little bit of a shake to my hand, and should turn a little bit because I want the audience to get a nice view of my face. I don't want to sit too straight up. I'm frightened. I'm very afraid, and I'm thinking all these things in my head to make my performance more realistic and better for the audience. And so then the curtain starts to open, and as the curtain is opening, I start to think in my head, I had better stop this, preparation, this mental preparation, because I've got to have lines to say in about 3 lines. And the first line came out of Don Ringkamp's mouth, The second line came out of I don't know who else's mouth. The third line, as they're saying their lines and approaching my first line, it occurs to me I have no idea what it is because I've spent so much time making with my hand shaking and changing my angle at which I was looking out at the audience. And finally, they came down to me, and I came up with a great line. I said, "I don't know what to say." And like 5 people on the stage looked at me like, what the hell is going on now? But finally, somebody said something and somebody else said something, and you brought me back to life and so forth. But that's the kind of thing that, like it's amazing how your brain just goes, the slate is clean. You have no idea what scene am I in? What act are we in? What play are we doing? Who am I? Why am I here? It's a terrible, terrible sensation. And it's not on Broadway. If it was on Broadway, I guess you'd blow your brains out. Anyhow, so I just thought those two were cute because both times I said the same line to get me out of trouble. A funny thing happened on the way to the Forum. No, but that's not the play I'm going to talk about. Arsenic and Old Lace at the Actors Circle. We did I've been involved in Arsenic and Old Lace 4 times. I directed it 3. I was directed it and was in it with the same character three of the four times. And the fourth time, the last time we did it, I just directed it. I wasn't in it anymore because I was too old to do the what do you call? One of the first times I did it was up at uh, again at the museum for Bob Schlesinger's group. I directed it and I played the little doctor who is changes the face of the monster, not the monster, but the guy who's kind of like Frankensteinian, and so that he doesn't go to jail. I keep changing his appearance, and they have there's a bit in the play where you have a window seat with a lid that goes up, and a body is hidden in that window seat, and the audience sees the bad guy taking a dead person and putting the in the window seat and closing the window seat, and we had a gal as the dead body because if he had to pick up the man that he was killing, he would be too heavy. So we had a girl dressed as a man to be the person. So I'm my character. I'm not carrying the person, but the big guy does it. A little bit later, like 2-3 minutes later, I come in to the room. I'm not aware. I mean, my character's not aware. And I wander over to the window seat, and I'm supposed to be kind of drunk, and I'm supposed to stumble and fall into the window seat. Big laugh, ha ha! As I'm falling into the window seat, I'm looking down. The girl has not rolled out of the way yet. She has there's no back to the underneath the window. It's open. But she was so intrigued by the dialogue, I guess, and I almost killed her, but I didn't. She rolled out at the last moment. I only killed myself because I smashed my knee and hit the ground the wrong way and all this kind of stuff, but no real damage done. But that's not even it's a mistake, but it's not even a terrible mistake. It could have been a terrible mistake. Same play, different night. As I said, I'm in the play. I'm the little surgeon that works with the real bad guy. We've got the nephew, who's a playwright of the two little old ladies who like to poison people. If you haven't seen Arsenic and Old Lace, if you ever get a chance, it's a cute play. They even have a movie of it on YouTube. Um, he's tied up, gagged, because we're going to kill him because he's in our way. He's, his brother is the big, tall, monsterish guy. But he's tied up in a chair. I am waiting for orders to kill him. So it's just the two of us on stage. We have a candle that's lit on stage. And I'm doing the talking. And in comes a policeman, played by a guy named Jerry Leeson. Hell of a nice guy. He's dressed as a policeman. And he comes in, and now we have a man tied up with the, help me. He knows he's going to be killed. And Jerry's a dumb cop. So he says, wait a minute, aren't you the famous playwright? Joe Blow, or whatever the name of the character was. And I'm just sitting there there's a policeman here. I got to be, I don't know what to do. And he says, gosh, and I say something like, yeah, we're working on a play of his now. We're just testing something out to explain the gag. And he says, I'm writing a play. And I would love it if you would just let me give you the not read the play to you, but tell you the storyline of the play to see what you think. And maybe you have some suggestions. And he starts to tell him the play, which is, this is the way it's written. I mean, this is not made up. But after about 4 or 5 lines, the lights are supposed to go down. The candle, I'm supposed to, take the candle and lower it in the glass so that it looks, instead of being a high candle, it's a low candle to indicate time has passed. And then the lights come back up again, and the cop is gone. Okay, that's what's supposed to happen. So Jerry says, gee, aren't you the famous playwright? So and so and so and so. I have this play I'm writing. And he says his 4 or 5 lines that he's supposed to say, and the lights don't go down. Because the lighting man is up there reading a Penthouse magazine or whatever he's doing. And Jerry, quick as a flash, I love it when actors get these quick ideas and they know exactly what to do in any kind of a, what do you call it? He looks out over the audience up toward the lighting man and he says, "Hey, what happened to the lights?" Which I always thought was one of the better covers on stage for a mistake. And then the lighting man put the magazine down and the stage goes to black. Now, I'm the director of the play as well as the character in the chair, but I can't believe that Jerry came up with that line. That was the best he could do. What happened to the lights? So I get up and I stalk off the stage. I'm no longer in view of the audience. I'm just off stage, and I'm like, not. I guess I was cursing a little bit, but not out loud. And I'm thinking, oh my God, how you keepers, creepers, we were going so well, and now it's and the lights come up. The cop is gone. The guy is still in the chair with the. I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I'm not in the chair. I'm off stage. What am I going to do? So I run around backstage and I come back up through the cellar door where the bodies are, and I come back in and say, I just went down to the cellar to correct the bodies and make sure everything was okay. And, so the play went back on again. But the mistake and the cover by Jerry Leeson was, I thought, beautiful. It's the kind of thing that I'll remember to my dying day. By the way, Jerry, from an earlier story that we told in this open mic thing a couple of weeks ago, Jerry was the guy who never showed up on Sunday's performance of Harvey in Carbondale, and we had to put the producer on the stage in his costume. But I love him anyway. And finally, the best for tonight. Anyway, it's always hard to say this is going to be the best. Um, in the Abingdons, go back to the Abingdons. I'm directing Dracula. Not it's the one that had it's the version that Bela Lugosi did on Broadway back in 1928. Tony Santinello, very well known in the area, a good friend of mine, good actor. He's playing Dracula. I'm not in this. I'm just a director. And in the play, if you know the thing of the thing about Dracula, Dracula cannot be seen in a mirror. Okay? There is no image of him when he walks by a mirror, and that's one way of testing. Like if you're in a room with a guy or a gal, and you look and they're not in the mirror, run. Anyhow, so we have a rectangular piece of wood that's going to have a mirror in it for the nights of the show, but we're not going to break a mirror every night of rehearsal. We just have a blank, on top of a table, on top of a little bureau type thing. And Tony's job, when Van Helsing comes in and looks in the mirror and then looks over at him, knowing that where the hell, why isn't he in the mirror? And Tony is supposed to pick up an ashtray and throw it across the stage and break the mirror. That's the business. And I recall almost every night at rehearsal, Tony would throw it across the stage and it wouldn't break anything. It would just go through it was just air, just a rectangular piece of wood. But he would not go in the center of the mirror or the mirror to be. He would be a low and to the, almost missing. And I called him on it a couple of times. I said, Tony, you know, you're always in the same spot. You got to pick it up a little bit. Get in the middle. You might miss the mirror sometime. Don't worry, Lou. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. It'll be okay. So anyhow, opening night. Dracula is on stage, and Van Helsing is, they're talking like they just met, like that at somebody's house. It's not at all like the real story, And we have now in the mirror, we have not glass. We had an order from New York. It's the stuff that when you go to the movie and see a guy get hit over the head with a bottle of beer or a bottle of whiskey, or it's not really a bottle of beer or whiskey because it could kill somebody. They have stuff made out of it's a glass substance, but it breaks very easily. And it's expensive. So we only had enough for the 3 nights of the show. One Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon. So we bought 3 of them. So it's Friday night. So now, for the first time, Tony's going to be throwing into a mirror across the stage. And I'm standing as far behind the audience in the Waverly Community House, which had a nice little theater. We used to do our shows in the Waverly Community House at the Avenue when we were in the Avingtons. And this is the big scene coming up. Now, I had no premonitions. There was no omens. There was there was stars were not in misalignment. I'm just watching it as I watch any play that I'm directing. And Tony, and they have a couple lines of dialogue, and Doctor is looking out toward the audience. He's standing by the mirror, facing out. Tony's on the other side of the stage, and realizes that the doctor has seen that he's not his image is not in the mirror. And so Tony does. He picks up his little piece of ashtray or whatever the hell it was, and he wings it across the stage, and he misses. He misses. Just like I said, Tony, he misses. And so I'm standing there with my mouth open, like, wow, now what are we going to do? And Tony, again, the actors that always come up with these ideas at the last minute, he's wearing a cape. And he runs across the stage. At the same time, he takes his cape and does this and wraps it around his hand and arm and puts his fist through the mirror. But as he's putting his fist through the mirror, I can see that the cape is unraveling. And by the time he gets his fist over here, the cape is no longer over his arm. And he puts his hand and arm through the mirror. And the doctor, Van Helsing, is looking like I said, he was facing out toward the audience. He's upstage of Tony. And he looks down at Tony's arm when Tony pulls his arm out and does this. And I'm 100 feet away down at the back of the theater, and I know I know what that look means. He cut himself. So I have to run down to the basement, run through the basement of the Waverly Community House, run up the stairs into where the actors would, change and all this kind of stuff backstage. And by the time I got there, because that was the end of the scene, when he breaks the mirror, that's the end of the scene. Lights go out, actors leave the stage. There's a little bit of a break, maybe 5 minutes before the next scene. Tony is lying on the floor. All the actors, the entire cast, is standing and around him. One guy who happens to be an emergency, like he would work with in real life, he was a hospital. When they're taken to the hospital in a wagon, that guy, that kind of a guy. Emergency people. Him and his wife both do that. And they're both in the play. And he's on stage now. He's supposed to be on stage. He's taking care of Tony, so he's pressing on the wound to keep Tony from bleeding to death. And his wife says, the guy who's doing this, says, "You just stay with him. I will go out and do your lines." I never knew my own lines. Never mind my wife's lines or my friend's lines. She runs out, and I'm hopeless in this thing. I'm just like, all I'm thinking of is, I gotta go out in 10 minutes with a cape on and be Dracula. And I'm a foot shorter than Tony Santinello, so it's gonna be really stupid. Anyhow, she runs out because there's two other people sitting on stage now, and this guy with the pressure on Tony's arm is supposed to come in and has lines and sets up some information, right? So his wife comes out, and actually the two actors on stage, although I didn't see this, they told me later, they were shocked. What the hell is she doing here? Oh, and I guess they got through it. In the meantime, this guy's gotten some bandages and put some pressure on his arm and Tony says, "I'm really sorry, Lou, but I think I can finish the play. Don't worry, I'll do it." Which made me happy that I didn't have to do it, and worried that he would pass out and die in front of the audience. It's like one of these things, which is worse. So he finished the play. And after that, as soon as the play was over, instead of all of us going for a drink, I took Tony in my car to a doctor. We had called ahead to a doctor. 34 stitches. scar like this long up his arm, 34 stitches, because he wouldn't listen to me in rehearsal. But he's if you watch Tony's still acting, he's still good. You know, he doesn't do any more Dracula though. And that's going to be it for tonight. There's not That's not all I have up my sleeve, but that'll be it for tonight. Bon voyage.